All right. Well, let's start with the program today. Thank you all who are here. We have a full room at the Heritage Room at the Union League Club of Chicago. So it's going to be another great meeting. But before we go on to introduce our speaker, who is Governor Jim Edgar, I would like to make an announcement for our club members. As you must have seen in the gyrator, we have a very short survey that we really need for all our members to complete it, because it's about the in-person event participation. So, Tamara, whenever you can show the form. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, just take a look at the gyrator, and it's just a few questions. It's going to take you maybe 10 seconds to fill it in, but your opinion really matters, because we need your information to plan our meetings for next Rotary year. All right. We also have many good things happening on Thursday, May 19th. From 5:30 to 6:30. We have a member appreciation event at the South Asian Institute that is in 1925 South Michigan Avenue in Chicago. So do come, because they're organizing a special visit for us, and we would love to have you there. We have a lot of new members this year, so we hope to see all of you. All right, the members and our guests are going to enjoy a private tour of the South Asian Institute that is going to be led by the founders of the Institute. And after the tour, the guests will meet for complimentary snacks and drinks at a local venue that is going to be determined. All right. Well, we have a very distinguished guest today, the Governor Jim Edgar of Illinois. And as usual, we are going to take questions at the end of the remarks. And for those of you who are here at the club, please hold your questions until the end. And those who are on Zoom, please type them in the chat box. And we're going to be reading them for you. All right? We will do our best to get to the questions. I'm sure there are going to be many today. So don't get mad if we don't get to ask your particular question, but we want to hear from Governor Edgar. All right, so lunch is being served now, and I will proceed to introduce Governor Edgar. All right. Governor Edgar was elected governor of Illinois in 1990 and re-elected by the widest plurality any incumbent Illinois governor has received, carrying 101 of the state's 102 counties, including Cook County. His announcement that he would not seek a sixth term surprised the Illinois media and political insiders, who cited poll numbers that indicated he had earned the highest approval rating of any Illinois chief executive and was in a strong position to win again. As he was leaving office, the Chicago Tribune stated that Governor Edgar's instincts and motives were as sound as those as any governor of the state has had. Edgar's stewardship capped 3 decades of public service. He distinguished himself as a key aide to government leaders, a member of the General Assembly, and a Secretary of State, where he led a crackdown on drug drivers, won approval for a law requiring Illinois motorists to carry insurance. After retiring from elective office, Governor Edgar was a resident fellow at the John Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. All right, Governor Edgar, you will tell us a lot more. I would like to convey to you the special greetings from David Hirsch, who unfortunately cannot be here because he's flying somewhere between the Cayman Islands and Chicago. So he didn't trust that he would get good internet service on the plane. You might like to know that David Hirsch is our co-chair of the programs committee, together with Eric Kempel, who is sitting in the back, immediate past president Eric Kempel. And David, well, he's one of our cherished members. He's organizing, for those of you who know, his initiative with fathers and the network of fathers he has created. He has the annual conference this Saturday. And also the following weekend on Saturday 21st, he is going to be running 100 miles. So, yeah. He told me that was in his bucket list. So I don't know what else David Hirsch has not done, but yeah, the latest is that, he's our Rotarian that has biked around Lake Michigan. He has biked across the United States more than once. And now the latest is he's going to be running 100 miles. So without anything else to tell you, Governor Edgar, I would like to invite you to the podium. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much. Keep eating your chicken. I don't want anybody to miss a meal. I've heard this speech and you want to eat your meal. It's not get something out of this. Delighted to be here, and I did bring my vaccination booster card as I was instructed, which I think is very smart. It's my pleasure to be here. Over my almost 50 years involved in government and politics, I've had the opportunity on many, many occasions to speak to Rotary clubs. In fact, I was mentioned at the table, the first speech I ever gave right out of college, when I went to work for the legislature, they brought me home to Charleston to speak to the Rotary Club. So, and to me, that was really a big occasion, because the Rotarians in Charleston, they were the people who really were the leaders in the community. And for them to want me to come and speak, I thought maybe I've made it. And I was 23 at the time. And I'm not sure after the speech, I think I made it. But anyway, that's my first experience with Rotary, and I've had many, many other opportunities. And I want to commend all of you for being Rotarians. Not only your willingness to come together every week, but all the good that you do in your communities throughout. We have people from throughout the country here. It is very important. If we are going to meet a lot of our challenges, we have groups like Rotarians who are willing to give of their time and resources to help people. Government can't do it all. If government did it all, it just wouldn't work right. So again, I'm very complimentary to Rotarians, and I'm delighted to be here. Now, the last time, I believe, first time, and I think the last time I spoke to Rotary One was 32 years ago. Anybody here except me at that speech? I mean, if you were, I'm amazed you came back. This was early in my campaign for governor in 1990. I was Secretary of State running against Neil Hartigan, the Attorney General. And it was going to be a close race, so we wanted to get off to a good start. And early in the year, 1990, I was invited to come and speak here. And so I wanted to present what was going to be my program to deal with drug abuse, which then seems like always has been an issue. And I wanted to do this right. I wanted to impress people that I knew what I was talking about and I was up to the job. And so we prepared a speech, and I don't give prepared speeches. First of all, I have trouble reading it, and two, they're dull. And so, but I had a prepared speech. We had a position paper that was several pages long on our drug policy. We had a press release, all these things. And we thought, we're speaking to Rotary One downtown Chicago at noon in the middle of the week. I can't remember what day it was, sometime a weekday. We thought there'll be a really good media turnout. Now, let me be very candid. In a campaign, that's what you shoot for if you're a candidate. You want that free publicity. And I wanted to get this good start on the campaign in Chicago and show people that I was really up to the job. And we were counting on television, which that's the one you really want, because a lot of people won't read newspapers, but they'll watch television, or they don't get up and turn off the channel. That was before you had remote controls. So people were pretty well locked in. Well, and I showed up the road. Now, there's one big difference I noticed than 32 years ago? There are a lot more attractive people that are Rotarians today than there was 32 years ago. I would just remember we're a bunch of basically white stuffy males in dark suits at that gathering that day. And anyway, so I'm excited that we're gonna get this media coverage. One reporter showed up out of all the press corps in Chicago. And that happened to be the political reporter for the Tribune. It had nothing to do with the fact I was outlining my policy on drug abuse. He just hadn't covered me for a while, so he thought he'd stop by. He wrote a good story. It appeared on the obituary page of the Chicago Tribune. So afterwards, we thought, maybe this wasn't the right approach. Maybe, especially we want to get television, we got to have more visual. A bunch of white men just doesn't do it in dark suits. So we were then going to unveil my environmental policy. And we decided to do it on the Chicago River. It's environmental looking. And we decided, all right, Chicago media, they don't really care that much about state government. They only cared if you were in a fight with the mayor. So let's do it on a Saturday when there's not much going on. And we don't want to do it too early because Chicago media does not get up early. We'll do it at about 11 o'clock. So Saturday, 11 o'clock, downtown on the Chicago River. Turned out to be a beautiful day. We had all these colored charts and all these visuals to show. Nobody showed up, not one media. Now let me fast forward to the last weekend of the campaign for governor. I'd got savvy about how do you deal with the media. The last weekend, my opponent, we were accusing that he waffled on issues. And so the last weekend I did a fly around, or really it was a drive around the suburban areas and Chicago where most of the votes are. And I held up at each stop a waffle in my hand. And all I said was, if my opponent wins the election, this will be the state seal, a waffle. That's not real in-depth campaign, And I did that all over. That night, on the Sunday night, 10 o'clock news, which is the most important, at least then it was, in news to be on, Sunday night, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock news. It was the lead story, me holding up this waffle. The next morning in the Chicago Tribune and the Sun-Times, front page, color photo, me holding up the waffle. Now, if you wonder why candidates talk about strange things in a campaign, I'll use as an example. You kind of do what you can get media coverage. And I tried to do it right at Rotary 1. But by the end of the campaign, I was holding up a waffle. And I barely won that election. I don't think without that waffle, I'd have probably won because I was behind in the polls. So anyway, that was one of the things I learned from my trip to Rotary 1 that first time. Now, I started out in state government right out of college as a legislative intern. And I had the good fortune of working for a gentleman named W. Russell Arrington. He was the Senate Republican leader from Evanston and also a very active member in the Union League Club. In fact, the first time I was ever here was he invited me to come to have the lunch, which is a big deal if we got asked by the senator to come to the Union League Club and have lunch. So the Union League Club has always been special to me over the years, and delighted to be here at the Union League Club, and stayed last night and will stay again tonight. But one of the things that was very important, I learned from working with Senator Arrington, and I kind of had two on the roads to Damascus experience in my life. The first one was in 1972, Governor Ogilvie, Richard Ogilvie was the governor, wanted to pass a bill to raise the gas tax to help mass transportation, which in 1972, the only mass transportation to speak of was the CTA, which was not real popular with suburbanites and downstaters, particularly Republicans. And Senator Arrington wanted to help him because he thought mass transportation was very important, being from Evanston and also spending most of his time in Chicago. So we worked the members, tried to get them to vote for it. They just wouldn't do it. The year before, they'd voted for the income tax, and they were still scared to death about that. And they weren't going to vote for the gas tax that was basically going to go to the CTA. And I remember we were in a caucus late one night till 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was obvious this wasn't going to happen. And finally, Senator Arrington called Governor Ogilvie, told him, we can't get this passed. Well, the next morning I go into his office, and Senator Arrington, they talk about Mike Madigan being powerful. Madigan was the Arrington in the last 20. Arrington was the legislature back in the 1960s, and he made the modern legislature. He was all powerful, did not suffer fools well. Daley always referred to him as arrogant Arrington, and he was, but he was effective. And so I go into his office, and I could tell he was really upset. I said, Senator, are you upset about not getting that bill last night? I said, do you realize if you kept pushing your members, particularly after you pushed in the vote for the income tax last year, they would have probably thrown you out as Republican leader. And Arrington's a short gentleman, and he looked up at me and he says, Jim, we're not here for politics. We're here to solve problems, and we did not solve the problem. Now, as a 23-year-old, that impressed me. And that is kind of what I always thought government's supposed to be. You solve problems. And unfortunately, I think in the last couple of decades, we've got away from that. We're not solving problems at the federal level. We hadn't solved them for a long time. It's the state level too. And when I left the governorship, I went to University of Illinois. They gave me the title Distinguished Fellow. And after 30 years in Illinois politics, if anybody was going to call me distinguished, I was going to take the job. And while I was there, I had time to kind of just think. As governor, you don't have a whole lot of time to think. I don't know about you Rotarian governors, but you're just reacting to one crisis after another crisis if you're the state governor. So at U of I had time in that academic environment, that kind of ivory tower thing to think. And I thought, why aren't things working? What's happened? And there are 3 words I want to leave with you that I think we need to remember so we get back to solving problems. The first is civility. We need to return civility to our political process and to government and probably all of society. When I first went to Springfield 50-some years ago, Republicans and Democrats used to fight on the floor of the House and the Senate. They'd go at each other. And when it was over, they'd go out and have a drink together and they have dinner together. It wasn't personal. As I said, it's business. And even when they did go at each other, they never said anything derogatory about each other. They just disagreed on the issue. And that's what you expect in a democracy. But we've got away from that, unfortunately. Today, it's too polarized. People, if you don't agree with him, you're bad, you're wrong, you're evil. And that's just not true. One of the things I learned in my 30 years in state government was that there's a lot of different points of view. And you need to respect other people's point of view. And there's not necessarily one solution to a problem. And nobody has all the answers. So civility is extremely important. And you can't call your opponent today a crook because tomorrow you might need to work with that person on some other issue. And if you've called somebody a crook, they're probably not going to want to work with you. It's going to be really hard to reach that consensus. And that goes to the second word. It's extremely important. Compromise. Now, to a lot of people, compromise is a dirty word. To me, it's the essence of a democracy, particularly a diversified democracy as we live in. Again, you're not going to get 100% of your way. You shouldn't get 100% of your way because you're not right 100% of the time. You're lucky if you're right 50% of the time. You need to understand that there's give and take. And I really believe that better public policy comes out of compromise than when one side or one person gets their way 100%. Because when you have compromise, that means you're going to have more than one point of view at the table trying to resolve that problem. And if you have more points of view in the mix, that policy is probably going to be better accepted by the public because they're all going to feel like they got something from that compromise. Compromise, it's not easy. There's some things that's really hard to compromise. I think the Supreme Court's going to bring back an issue that I had hoped we'd kind of put on the back burner. Abortion's a hard issue to compromise on. A budget's a much easier issue to compromise on. But most issues, you can find some common ground if you just respect the other point of view with civility and you work to reach a consensus, a compromise. Without a compromise, I don't think the system works that well. And I do think usually we're a better system when both parties have input on the outcome. When all regions of the state has some input on the outcome. I don't think it's really healthy when either party has complete control and kind of shuts out the other party. So compromise along with civility. The last thing I want to mention, and this is perhaps the most important, and I think a lot of people forget, and that's the word compassion. To me, the major function of government is to help people who can't help themselves. And if government doesn't work, if we don't solve the problems, who gets hurt? It's not those of us in elected office. It's not those of us at the top of the economics stratofield. It's the people at the bottom. It's the people who don't have the resources. They have a serious illness, whatever. They need help, and only government can provide that help often. And if government doesn't do their job, these people suffer. So while we might get all excited about some battle we're having in Springfield or Washington, or we're fighting over some issue that we think is really important, at the end of the day, if we don't solve the problem, we failed and people get hurt. And I think my second on the road to Damascus experience, I only had two of them, so I guess one ahead of Paul, but I was running for re-election in 1994. 1990, we didn't know till the next day if I won that election or not. It was close. In fact, most people thought I'd lost it early on because the votes came in from Chicago, and we had this VIP reception up at the Hyatt that night. And I remember all these big donors and people that I had came up, and we were trailing the first hour pretty bad. And they came up and was, Jim, no matter what happens, you ran a good campaign. You know, you hear they are now. And my wife Brenda, who thought I was going to win and I didn't think I was going to win the last 2 weeks. She thought I was going to win. I knew that night I was going to win because I knew where the exit polls were. And this first time when she heard these people say what they said, she said, we're going to lose, aren't we? And she was very upset. Not that she wanted me in politics, but she knew that it's important to me. And in fact, I'm not sure she voted for me, but she was I said, don't worry, we're going to win. And we did, but barely. Well, the next election, I wanted to get every vote I could when I ran for re-election. To me, that's the most important, because when you run for re-election, it's on you. The first time you run, it's usually the incumbent governor, even if that's not on the ballot. But if you're the incumbent governor, that's the main issue in the campaign. And I wanted to win big. And I had, in my very close election, I actually did well in Chicago for a Republican. I did very well in the African-American community for a Republican. I think I got 25% of the African-American community vote. You don't do that as a Republican. You're lucky if you get 8%. And so, I'd spent a lot of time in that community. And so it was about 2 weeks before the election, I got invited to a groundbreaking ceremony on the south side of Chicago in a very depressed area that they were going to build this new office building. And I was invited because the Department of Children and Family Services was going to lease part of that building. And back then, state government was considered a good risk. So the fact they were going to have a room, they're going to rent part of that building, they were able to get the loan to build the building. So I got invited. And my staff said, what are you going down there? The south side. They said, there aren't any Republican votes down there. And I said, there may not be any Republican votes, but there might be some Edgar votes. I said, I don't really care, to be truthful, what their politics are, just if they vote for me. And I said, I want to go down there. I said, my first 4 years, we were broke when I became governor and nothing new. We were basically bankrupt, and I had to cut everything. Mayor Daley, the young Mayor Daley, referred to me as Governor No. I mean, I had to tell people no, and that's not a fun thing to do in politics. You want people to like you. You want to say yes. Well, we just didn't have the money. Too many politicians had said yes. So I said, I haven't gone to many groundbreakings. We haven't been able to do anything. This is one of the, and I want to go. This is one of the fun things you get to do. People are in a good mood. This and parades are the two best things to do. And so they said, well, you're wasting your time. I said, we'll go down there and see. So beautiful fall day. We drive up in the office in Chicago, drove down to the south side, got out, huge crowd there. This is a big deal in this neighborhood. I mean, they had not had any good news in a long time. And so I go over with the other dignitaries. We take the shovels, we move the dirt. So we're starting to walk back to the car, and the crowd just engulfs me. I mean, there had to be 2,000 to 3,000 people there. They just engulfed me. And I always had 2 state troopers with me any place I went as governor. And in the Chicago detail, I had 2 African Americans and 2 Irish guys. And usually when I went in the city, the African Americans, they knew the city better than the 2 suburban Irishmen did. And for some reason that day, I had the 2 Irishmen. And the 2 Irishmen and myself were probably the only non-African Americans in this neighborhood. I mean, this was an all-black neighborhood. And this was a big deal to them. And so, and I'm not worried, everybody's in a good mood, but I didn't see my 2 Irish guys anyplace. And the crowd kind of got closer, and all of a sudden this guy walked up to me, big guy. And I could tell by his dress, he'd had a hard go in life. He wasn't wearing a coat and tie, that was for sure. And he came up and he said, "Are you Edgar?" Well, again, I looked for my state troopers. They're no place to be seen. And I'm thinking, I just spent $4 million on a media blitz in Chicago saying I'm Edgar. Now, I'm going to be a little hard for me to say I'm not Edgar. And I said, but I sure wish I wasn't. And I said, yeah, I'm Edgar. And he said, do you know what you did to me? And again, crowds beginning to think, this is going to be more fun than the groundbreaking. I mean, the governor's going to get his. And no troopers any place to be seen. And I said, no. I thought to myself, I don't know what I did to him, but I sure wish I hadn't. I said, no, what did I do to you? He said, you took away my welfare check. Now, my first year as governor, we had a very tough time in the budget. We had to cut, and I had to make tough decisions. And one of the decisions I made, I didn't want to cut aid to dependent children. To me, that was crucial. Those kids needed that help. But we also had in Illinois, which was unique, a lot of states didn't have it, a welfare program that we paid able-bodied men and women who did not have jobs. Didn't get a federal match, but we had that. And I thought, well, I don't want to cut aid to dependent children, plus we get a federal match on that. We're going to have to do away with this other program. And that's what I proposed. Well, needless to say, legislators in the South and the West side of the city, where they had a lot of their constituents receive this public aid benefit, were opposed. And they argued with me, and we argued back and forth, but in a civil manner. And at the end of the session, we both knew we're going to have to compromise. They knew I needed to spend less money, and I knew I had to give them some help. And we compromised. Well, but they told me after we compromised that still we're going to have riots on the south and west side of Chicago in their districts when this went into effect. Well, we didn't have riots up till this day. And I'm thinking, oh, great. I said, this is finally going to come back and get me. And also, I was thinking, as opposed to that election in 1990 when I barely won, I had a huge lead in the polls at this point. And I thought, I'm going to win this election, but I don't think I'm going to be alive to see it, because this guy really didn't seem like he liked me. And so he said, you took away my welfare check. And before I could say anything else, he said, and that was the best thing you could have done to me. I kind of looked at the guy, and this is all a true story. I hope most of my stories are true, but this is definitely true. I said to him, he said to me, what I originally thought, as soon as he said that was the best thing, I thought, well, he's not going to kill me. I'm going to live to see the election. And two, where are those TV cameras when you need them? Here's a guy. He said, to keep that welfare check for 6 months, I had to go to a job training program. And that was the compromise. The compromise we worked out with those legislators who disagreed, who came at it from a different point of view than I came at it. But we found some common ground. We were going to eliminate that program in 6 months, but in the 6 months to continue to receive it, the individuals had to go to a job training program. And he said, I went to the job training program. And he says, I just want to thank you. He said, because I've had a job ever since. He said, now, I've not had a great job, he said, but I've had a job. And he said, I wouldn't have got that without that job training. Now, the only reason I thought, too, he maybe he wasn't going to kill me, was he had a little girl on his shoulder. And he says, I can't tell you how proud I feel when I come home at night. And I know my little girl knows I've been to work. So I just want to thank you. Well, it dawned on me, putting aside the political stuff, it dawned on me, this was a huge issue to this individual. This changed his life. Now, in the overall scheme of things, what was going on in Springfield that session, that was not something you read about in the paper. It was pretty down the ladder. But it underscored what I should have known all along, but that was, I said, my road to Damascus moment too. What we do in government is extremely important to individuals. Now, maybe not to everybody, maybe just to a few. But to those few, it can mean the difference between having food on the table or even life or death. So government has to do its job. It has to solve the problems that people face. And there aren't any little problems. If you're an individual and you have a problem, that's a major problem. And it's important not just for elected officials. It's important for people who work in the bureaucracy. It's important for everyone dealing with government. It's important for people who aren't in government. It's important that you who aren't in government make sure you take the time to make sure the right people are elected to office that will solve the problems. Because again, if government doesn't meet its responsibility, a lot of innocent people will get hurt. Well, I have to say that was probably the highlight of my 8 years of being governor. It was when that gentleman told me that he appreciated what we had done. And that was done through that process of civility, compromise, and at the end, compassion. And so to go back to my mentor, Senator Arrington, to do what we need to do and to get the problem solved, we need to remember those three words: civility, compromise, and compassion. Thank you very much. Take Q&A now. Okay. No, you going to take question and answer?
Yes, we have both questions in Zoom.
Okay.
And also questions from the audience.
Okay, who are we going to do first?
So, okay, but we'll do one and one, right?
Okay.
So,
let's take one from the audience first.
Chuck, please, would you, Karen is going to bring the microphone so our friends on Zoom can hear.
Hi, thank you. I'm Chuck Roby. I wanted to ask the governor, with your experience, and it is a wealth of knowledge and deep understanding of politics and government, I will ask a question that might be a little bit of a stretch today, but with regard to what's going on in the Ukraine and in Russia, there doesn't seem to be very much talk on the efforts for peacemaking. I just wanted your views on, given the politics that's happening, but also the extreme need for the three things that you mentioned: civility, compromise, and compassion, how that can be applied to this situation. Thank you. Well,
let me say, I always wanted to be Secretary of State, but I didn't want to be the one handing out license plates. I wanted to be the guy shuttling around and doing diplomacy. And I have to say that I still can't believe what Putin did. I mean, You know, in the 21st century, I thought we were past that. I think they tried to be civil with him. I mean, I don't, when you have one person, that's the problem with a dictatorship. When you don't have anybody, they're not answerable to anybody. I mean, there were a lot of times I knew I was right. Unfortunately, I had some people around me that convinced me I wasn't right. And I don't think Putin has that. So I do think we need to always try to work toward a peaceful settlement. I mean, if this war it's brought back home because we've watched it more than we've ever watched any other war, and just see how brutal it is and how much damage it does for no good reason. I mean, just if you had a real good reasons, maybe the Arabs and the Jews might have a better ration. That's terrible too. But still, this had no, I mean, Ukrainians and Russians got along, I think, up till then. And they were close. I mean, it just made no sense. So I don't know if dealing with Putin until he realizes he's not going to win. And I don't know and I don't know the man, but just watching him, and I never have cared for him. I mean, I met Gorbachev, I met Yeltsin, I never met Putin, but I just never thought he was the guy that was going to sit down and compromise or whatever. And so I think that it's a difficult situation. And I keep hoping in some way this will end. I don't know how it's going to end. I mean, I think the more he's in, the deeper he's going to go. And I think at some point, NATO's might have to do something. I think it's great we're providing arms to Ukraine. I just don't know in the long run if that's going to suffice on stopping the Russians. But anyway, I think you're dealing with a person who it's just very hard to deal with. I think a lot of other leaders, I mean, the old Soviet leaders were, I think, a lot more rational. I mean, we probably made some mistakes. We probably shouldn't have said, well, we're not going to get involved. We're not going to use any nuclear. I mean, the threat of nuclear weapons probably kept peace during the Cold War. And the fact that Putin didn't think we were going to do anything based off what we had done in Afghanistan, what had happened in Syria, and also the 4 years of Trump just kind of downplaying NATO, I mean, I think left a false impression. I think it underscores, though, that it's very important for leaders to be very transparent on what they will and won't do to keep others from miscalculating. My experience or my knowledge of foreign policy, you got to understand what the other side's going to do. You got to anticipate that. And you need to make it clear to them what you're going to do and not do. And I think, unfortunately, we've sent some false signals. But that, to me, that's minor compared to the damage that Putin has done. Thank you. I could get my foreign policy thing, and I enjoy that.
Thank you very much. Well, as I would like to say that in the case of Putin, it is no news what he wants to do because he wrote about it. He gave his speech to every soldier in the Russian army. He already said in conferences, his goal is to exterminate the idea of Ukraine. So it's very hard to negotiate, at least at this time. And he's doing that already. So may he not succeed. One more question from the floor. Pancho, Karen will bring the microphone to you.
Thank you, Governor, for a wonderful speech. Very honest, right from the heart. What can we do as individuals and organizations to try to do something about our crisis here in the U.S.?
Which one?
The latest one, the impasse, failure to make the right decisions for.
Well, I think, and I'm getting pretty old. And so, us old timers, we always think this young group just got things all messed up and they just don't understand. We ought to go back to the old days. And you're not ever going to go back to the old days. But we have polarized our political process and society. Part of that, a lot of that I blame on the media. I mean, when I grew up, we had 3 networks. Here in Chicago, you had 3 networks and WGN. And if you watched the evening news, it was always pretty much the same point of view. I think it was pretty much down the middle. We always suspected that they were a little biased to the Democrats because they all lived on the East Coast, the national media, even though all of them came from the Midwest, Walter Cronkite and all the others. But there was not the polarization in politics. We had conservative Democrats and we had liberal Republicans. I was viewed as a moderate Republican. I mean, I'm a downstate Republican who was pro-choice. I was pro-ERA. I believed in raising the income tax. I mean, these things that you get thrown out of the Republican Party today if you believed in any of those things. And the Democratic side, we had Democrats from the city of Chicago, ethnic Democrats, and we had Southern Illinois Democrats who they were pretty conservative, particularly on social issues. So the parties were not as polarized, and everybody kind of knew at the end of the day they were going to have to give a little bit because everybody had to take something back to their district. The Chicago Democrats had to take something back to the mayor. The downstate Democrats, Republicans had to make sure they had roads and things they had to get. So at the end of the day, you knew you had to compromise, and you also knew in the caucuses, you had people that had different points of view and you wanted to keep the caucus united. So again, there was a lot more willingness to find common ground. And again, that's civility. I can't stress that too much. People, I think, respected other points of view. Today, I don't think we respect other points of view too much. We watch the TV programs that we agree with. So we get reinforced. And we probably even get pushed a little farther because, I don't listen to news a lot on the radio. I mean, first time I went on WGN radio, how many remember Bob Collins? Bob Collins Bob Collins probably made me as governor. I mean, more than anything. I was on his program all the time in the morning when I was Secretary of State. And, but I remember the first time I was going to go on, they said, you're going to go on WGN radio. This guy named Bob Collins says, what kind of music's he play? So he doesn't play music. He's talk. I said, I don't like talk radio. Fortunately, I went on Bob Collins. I mean, he got all over the state. It was the best thing that ever happened. He was a good, dear friend. So even today, I don't listen to all that much news radio, but after the Ukraine invasion, I've been glued listening to CNN and MSNBC. And now they're kind of getting away with that. They're getting back to the other things. And I'm sitting there thinking, gee, you listen to this long enough, no wonder you have that left-wing kind of slant. I don't listen to Fox. I don't watch Fox. I just don't. But I'm sure I know all my friends that do. They've got that really far right-wing slant of things. It's hard to get kind of something in the middle. You can listen to NPR, I think, comes the closest to it. But that, I think, is the dilemma we're facing. The other problem we have in our politics, besides this polarization, is primaries. Primaries now are where most people are elected, particularly legislators. These districts are gerrymandered in such a way, they're either all Republican or they're all Democrat. So you got to win the primary. You win the primary, you're in. You don't have to worry about the general election. Well, if you don't have to worry about the general election, then you don't have to worry about making the other side or get a few of those other party votes. Like I always had to get Republicans and Democrats, even when I ran for the legislature. And definitely when I ran for governor in this state, you got to get a lot of Democrat votes to win if you're a Republican. But primaries, you don't have to do that. And so you're kind of, these elected officials become very tied to that kind of more extreme view that comes out in the primary in either party. When I first went to Springfield, there were as many probably pro-choice Republicans as there were Democrats. That's not true today. And it's not true because they've all changed their mind. It's because, in a primary, who's going to show up in the Republican primary are right to life. And you better not be pro-choice or they'll beat you. Democrats, same thing. We used to have Democrats who were right to life. Atlantic Magazine has an article, this issue that goes into this. And now, if you're a Democrat, you better be pro-choice or you're not going to win the primary. So that polarization, that has carried over to the primaries, and as a result, we get elected officials who are already locked into what I consider kind of extreme views in both parties. And they don't have to compromise politically to get reelected. They just need to keep that base that's going to show up in the primary. And that, to me, is unfortunate. I think it's going to be interesting to see in Illinois. We have moved our primary, maybe some of you don't know, from March to June. Well, I think that's great. Because I think in March, nobody knows, nobody cares. So those few party regulars control things more. The fact is in June, I hope we get a better turnout and people might be a little more involved in it. I tried that as governor to move the primary. I tried to have open primaries where you didn't have to publicly declare you're a Republican or a Democrat. And also that you would have a summer primary, not a early winter primary like we had, which protects incumbents. Is the only thing I ever brought the Republicans and the Democrats together on. They came together to beat me on both those issues. But we've just got to some way deal with this polarization and try to begin to reach out and try to understand the other point of view and be more open-minded than we are today. Yep.
If I may say something, thank you, Governor, very much. And I'm going to make a pitch for Rotary for those of you who are not Rotarians and are visiting us today. I personally have found in Rotary an organization where I have friends with ideas in the entire political spectrum. But when the time comes to work on a project, when we are servicing a community, those ideas are not even the topic of conversation because our goal is to serve the community that we committed to serve through one of our grants or one of our projects. So those of you who are visiting and are not Rotarians, stay in touch. I would like to tell you more about Rotary as well as our other members would like to do so, because it is a beautiful place and we do have a movement on civil discourse. We have clubs that have committees to work on civil discourse, and they organize a type of Jeffersonian dinners, intentionally bringing people with different ideas, pick a topic, and that's how we begin a conversation. It's a little something, but it goes a long way in our world. And, interestingly, it brings more members to our organization because it is possible to do so, and it is happening. I was just speaking at a club on Friday in Palo Alto, California, that, that is what is attracting members, that we can share our differences. So I have hope because this is a great country. And it is for all of us to commit to civility, civil discourse, and service. So, Governor, thank you so much. And as a matter of fact, we're going to induct a new member that has just joined our club. And we are delighted with your presence and with your words and your stories. And we would love to hear more, I am sure. But thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And now I would like to invite our past president, Marshall Schmidt, who is going to induct Jacqueline. So Jacqueline, please come to the podium.
Why don't we put you here? Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Governor Edgar, for reminding us all how great leaders can be. Today, we are fortunate and grateful to be admitting a new member into the Rotary Club of Chicago. Every time a new member joins our ranks, we celebrate the rebirth of a tradition and an institution that has been helping make the world a better place since 1905. Jacqueline Boland, it is my great honor and privilege on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Rotary Club of Chicago to welcome you to Rotary One. You have been elected to membership in this club because your fellow members believe you to be a worthy representative of your calling and to possess the character that will enable you to exemplify the true spirit of Rotary in your public, business, social, and private life. Rotary is an organization of 1.2 million business and professional individuals pledged to uphold the highest professional standards. Rotarians believe that worldwide peace and international friendship can be achieved when businessmen and women unite under the banner of service. You are the representative of your vocation in this club, and the knowledge of your profession must necessarily come to the club through you. You are also the representative of Rotary in your vocation and in all aspects of your life. The community will know and judge Rotary by your embodiment of it in character and service. You've been selected for membership because your fellow Rotarians know that our principles and our organization are safe in your keeping. Rotary is not a political organization, but we believe in all things related to good citizenship. Rotary is not a charitable organization, but our projects throughout the community and the world reflect our responsibility to help others. Rotary is not a religious organization, but our beliefs are guided by eternal principles that have been the moral compass for people throughout the ages. By virtue of your membership in this club, you will be welcomed into the fellowship of any Rotary club in the world. And I know you're transferring, so you understand the value of Rotary fellowship. But the honor and privilege of Rotary membership carries with it duties and obligations. You'll be expected to attend the club's meetings regularly, to perform your share of club service, and to place your knowledge and talents at the disposal of the club in its task of carrying the principles of Rotary into the daily life of the community. I ask everyone to rise. Rotarian Jacqueline, do you solemnly pledge that you will fulfill the duties of membership in the Rotary Club of Chicago, and that to the best of your ability, you will support President Marga and her successors, and will abide by our club's constitution and bylaws in the name of the Rotary Club of Chicago?
I do.
I now formally admit you to membership to Rotary One. President Marga will affix to your lapel the Rotary Pin symbolizing your membership and commitment to service. Wear it proudly. This pin is very special as it features a 1 representing that we were the first Rotary Club in the world. You may all be seated. Rotarian Jacqueline, if you would like, please take a few minutes to tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here today. I have been a Rotarian up in Wilmette at the Wilmette Harbor Rotary Club for the last 5.5 years, and I was actually a rising president there. And then I was lucky enough to have a position at Wintrust Bank, which I am now able to walk 3 blocks to work instead of before I was driving 45 minutes. So I'm thrilled with that. I'm thrilled with the organization I've joined, and I'm thrilled to be part of Rotary One. The history of Rotary and the projects that we work on are truly humbling, and it's been an honor to be with my former club, and I'm very much looking forward to getting involved and meeting all of you here today. So thank you so much, and I appreciate you all welcoming me in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline, very much. Welcome to the family. Okay, well, we have 2 minutes left, so I don't want to, of course, you're all invited to stay if you wish to do so, but there are a couple of big events that I would like to announce. On the 24th of May, we have our annual lunch for the Woman of the Year that Lisa is coordinating once again. So do join us because it's always a great event, and we're going to be honoring women who have served the community in Chicago. And we're going to award them the Woman of the Year award. So also we have in one of our service projects upcoming for the second time, the annual Kayak River cleanup. And look at this at the newsletter, or ask me or Sarah Bach, who is the co-chair of the Community Services Committee. She'll tell you all about it. We had a great time last year. Ed Graziano can tell you a lot. He found the biggest piece of trash from the river. So, do join us, because I cannot tell you what a fun day we had, and there's still a lot to clean in the river, as you know. So, and with that, well, we have upcoming meetings, but it is already 1:20. So I want to honor your time. I want to thank you, all our guests that were with us on Zoom. And we will see you virtually. No, I'm sorry. We're going to see you here next Tuesday. And the following 2 meetings are going to be virtual. All right, everybody's invited to attend. And I would like to give a warm welcome again to our guests from Germany who have joined us again another year, former members of Rotary One that maybe they would like to join the family again. So, Marshall, thank you so much for taking the pledge to Jacqueline. And all of you, great. Is there anything I'm forgetting that you would like to announce to all of us who are here? No? Okay. So, yes, tomorrow is next Tuesday, Ryan, is an in-person meeting, and the 2 following Tuesdays are virtual. Lisa?
The Woman of the Year is also in person and virtual.
Okay, so thank you for the clarification.
Next week is virtual, and then in person, and then virtual.
Wow, okay, you know, this year as president is going so fast. so okay, did you hear that? Next week is virtual, then we have the Woman of the Year that is hybrid, and the remaining meetings are going to be virtual. All right, so Alita, job 1, okay. Those friends who don't know about the program, Job 1 is one of our signature programs chaired by Alita Williams. We provide a summer internship for juniors and seniors from the Chicago public school system that live in Chicago. And we have plenty of really excellent candidates for this summer paid internship. And we would like to have more employers, whether it's corporate or nonprofit. Please speak with Alita, because it's been a very, very rewarding program, not only for the students and their families, but as well for us in the club. With that, I am going to close the meeting. And thank you all for being here.